Meantime, this year of indictments, special counsels, and prosecutions of political figures, including a former president, is also a 50th anniversary of sorts. Late 1973 saw the unexpected elevation of Gerald R. Ford to the vice presidency and later to the White House, a presidency defined by how he handled the looming prospect of a very high-stakes prosecution of a former president. As Scott MacFarlane shows us, the legacy of Gerald Ford and his most consequential decision, a presidential pardon, loom especially large in one Midwestern city.
Just a mile from the river near a bustling downtown, it turns out this old house in this old neighborhood might be the landmark of Grand Rapids, Michigan.
People sometimes just knock on the door and say, hey, we'd love to see you inside.
Oh, there's just people pull up and pictures all over the place.
A labor of love for Rob Kent and Tim England, who bought it 30 years ago and say they're not just the owners, but caretakers too.
There's a moral obligation to making sure that it's kept right. Pictures here.
The house is historic because of the man who grew up here a century ago, America's 38th president.
I have learned already in this office that the difficult decisions always come to this desk.
Gerald R. Ford remains especially meaningful here, with his name plastered all around town. And 50 years after his unlikely ascendance to the vice presidency, no city in America celebrates his brief but tumultuous presidency like his hometown.
President Ford has granted Richard Nixon a, quote, full, free, and absolute pardon.
A presidency perhaps best remembered for one of the most controversial decisions in American history, Ford's pardon of his predecessor, Richard Nixon, who after Watergate and his resignation from the presidency faced the prospect of criminal indictment. Ford spared Nixon, and according to the new president's argument, the nation from the specter of a trial and the political upheaval it would bring.
He came into the office because he was thrust into the position.
Morel Lutke is curator of Ford's Presidential Museum on the downtown riverfront.
He had to know a good chunk of America was going to hate this choice.
He absolutely did know that. Ford recognized that, he acknowledged it, and he still felt that it was the best thing for the country.
The pardon might have ended Ford's political career, cost him the 1976 election, but he said he never regretted it. It's also part of an unprecedented presidency that has made Ford a larger-than-life icon in this Midwestern city.
A copy of the pardon is prominently and proudly displayed at the museum.
By pardoning Nixon, he is doing something deeply within character of the American spirit.
So's the pen Ford used to draft it. Even a life-size version of the Oval Office, where Ford made the decision in 1974, and where he received letters blasting or praising that decision, including a pat on the back from singer Johnny Cash, who wrote, "Remember that you can't do the will of God without getting a lot of people against you," and handwritten notes from children, including this one, saying Ford was half right and half wrong.
Has America's perspective on this changed in 50 years?
We have begun to kind of see what the larger picture was and where Ford was coming from with the pardoning.
In this politically purple area of a purple state, Stephen Ford maintains his dad captures the political and personal moderation that's common here.
When I look back on Dad's legacy of his very short presidency, same amount of days almost as John F. Kennedy, it's about healing. It's about healing the nation after Watergate, after the Vietnam War. It's about trying to restore some trust in the White House.
In a brutal cold in December 2006, they lined up throughout Grand Rapids to pay final respects at Ford's funeral.
It was about 10 degrees and the line was about 6 hours long.
And the love between Ford and Grand Rapids was mutual. He paid a post-presidential visit to that old house, proving he could still draw a crowd, including the new homeowners who say they adore being caretakers of the legacy of a man they call a caretaker president.
He took care of a horrible situation. That's what he had to do.
Not just a controversial decision of American history, but still a rich part of the history in this place that shaped him. For CBS Saturday Morning, Scott MacFarlane, Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Wow. So interesting. Nice job, Scott.
Yeah.
Doing that.
And that letter from Johnny Cash. Wow.
Absolutely. And it takes a lot of courage to make a decision that you think the rest of the country will hate, but hope that time shows the wisdom of your decision.
Yeah.